I still remember the day everything changed, as if the memory was burned into my mind with fire. It started like any other ordinary morning, but deep down, I knew something about it felt different. The air outside was unusually still, heavy, even, as though the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I woke up later than usual, sunlight already flooding through the curtains, painting golden streaks across my room. Normally, I would have shrugged it off as just another lazy day, but that morning had a weight to it I couldn't explain. My phone buzzed beside me on the nightstand, but when I picked it up, the screen was blank. No notifications, no messages, no calls, just nothing. It felt strange because every morning I was used to waking up to something, friends forwarding jokes, family checking in, some random app reminding me to do things I always ignored, but not that day. It was as if the world had gone silent, and I was the only one left awake. I pushed the uneasy thought aside, got dressed, and went downstairs. The house was quiet too. My parents usually made noise in the kitchen. My younger brother usually left the TV on, even when he wasn't watching it. But the silence was thick, almost suffocating. I called out, "Mom, Dad," but no one answered. At first I thought they might have gone out early, but something about the emptiness didn't feel right. I checked the kitchen half, a plate of toast sat on the counter, butter knife still lying next to it. It was as though someone had been in the middle of breakfast and just disappeared. My heart started to pound. I grabbed my phone again, tried calling my mom's number. No dial tone. The call didn't even connect, it just ended on its own, as if there was no one to reach on the other side. I tried my dad. Same result. Even tried calling my best friend, but nothing worked. I ran to the front door, flung it open, and stepped outside. The entire street was empty. No cars, no neighbors, no sound of life. Houses stood still like silent watchers, windows reflecting the sunlight back at me, giving no answers. Panic bubbled in my chest. My mind raced with questions. Where was everyone? Why wasn't anything working? Was I dreaming? I pinched myself hard, but the sting proved this was no dream. I walked down the road, calling out for anyone. "Hello? Anybody there?" My voice echoed, bouncing back at me, making the silence even louder. For the first time in my life, I realized how terrifying quietness could be. After a few minutes of wandering, I noticed something odd at the corner of the street. A piece of paper fluttering slightly on the ground, even though there was no wind. I bent down and picked it up. The handwriting on it was messy, rushed, almost desperate. It read, "If you're reading this, they already know you're awake. Don't trust anyone. Don't stay in the open. Run." My breath caught in my throat. Who wrote this? What did it mean? And who were they? I looked around, suddenly feeling exposed, like invisible eyes were watching me from every direction. The silence wasn't just silence anymore. It was a warning, a predator hiding in plain sight. Clutching the note, I turned back toward my house, but when I reached my front door, something was different. The door, which I was sure I had left wide open, was now shut tight. Slowly, carefully, I placed my hand on the knob. It was cold, colder than it should have been under the sun. That's when I heard it. A sound from inside the house. Not footsteps exactly, but something shifting, dragging, moving. My breath hitched and my pulse thundered in my ears. I had just been inside minutes ago, empty, silent, abandoned. But now, someone or something was in there. I wanted to run, to get as far away as possible, but my legs froze to the ground. Curiosity battled with fear, urging me to push the door open and look. My hand tightened on the doorknob, sweat trickling down my palm. And that's when everything I thought I knew about my life began to unravel. Because the moment I pushed that door open, I realized I was no longer living in the world I thought I knew. The door creaked open, and the sound sliced through the silence like a knife. I stepped inside slowly, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure it could be heard. The house looked the same at first glance, same scattered magazines, on the coffee table, same smell of my mother's lavender air freshener, but something was off. It was colder, not the kind of cold you feel when the air conditioning is running, but a deeper, unnatural chill that seemed to seep into my bones. I tightened my grip on the note in my hand, my eyes darting from corner to corner, waiting for movement. "Hello," I whispered, though I regretted it the second the word left my lips. My own voice sounded too loud, too foreign in that unnatural stillness. From the kitchen, I heard it against something dragging against the floor. I inched closer, every step heavy, as if the air itself was trying to pull me back. My hand trembled as I reached the doorway, but when I looked inside, the kitchen was empty. The toast from earlier was gone. Gone. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. But no, the plate was missing. The knife too, as if they had never been there. My stomach churned with dread. Then, I felt it. A presence, like someone was standing just behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, but there was nothing, just the empty hallway. That was when I saw him, figure standing outside the window, motionless, watching me. My breath caught, and I staggered back, nearly knocking over a chair. He was tall, dressed in dark clothing, his face shadowed by a hood. I couldn't make out his features, but I knew his eyes were on me. Before I could react, he raised his hand not in threat, but in warning. His finger pressed against his lips, signaling me to stay quiet. My instinct screamed at me to run, but something in the way he moved kept me frozen. Slowly, he pointed toward the back door, then gestured for me to follow. I didn't know if I could trust him, but my gut told me he was the only real person I had seen since this nightmare began. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out the back door, glancing once more toward the window. The hooded man was already gone. Outside, the silence was heavier than ever. The neighborhood looked frozen in time, like a painting with no life in it. I walked cautiously, every step echoing too loudly in my ears. My eyes darted everywhere, scanning for movement, but the streets remained empty. Then I heard a low whistle. I turned my head and saw him standing at the end of the alley, waving for me to follow. Reluctantly, I did. When I reached him, he didn't waste time on introductions. "You're awake," he said in a low, urgent voice. "That means they'll come for you." "Who?" I demanded, my voice shaking. His hood slipped slightly, revealing piercing eyes that seemed tired but alert. "Not here. It's not safe to talk out in the open. Come with me." I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed that following a stranger in an empty world was a bad idea. But then I remembered the note. If you're reading this, they already know you're awake. Maybe he was the one who wrote it. Maybe he knew what was happening. So I followed him. We moved quickly through empty streets, turning corners, slipping through alleys, avoiding open spaces as if we were being watched. He walked with purpose, like he knew exactly where to go. My mind raced with questions, but I stayed quiet until we ducked into an abandoned shop. Inside, he finally spoke again. "Listen carefully. You're not crazy. You're not dreaming. The world you knew isn't gone, it's hidden. Ass. And the fact that you can see the difference means you've been marked." Marked. "By who?" I asked, my throat dry. He looked me straight in the eye. "By them. The ones who erased everyone else. The ones who are still watching us right now." My blood ran cold, you're saying. "Everyone else? My family? My friends? They're gone?" "Not gone," he corrected, trapped. "Somewhere between here and nowhere. And if you want to survive, you'll have to listen to me." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't know who he was, or if I could trust him. But I knew one thing for sure. He was the only person left who had answers. I wasn't ready to face this nightmare alone. The man's words haunted me. They erased everyone else. And now they're watching us. I sat in the abandoned shop with him, my chest still tight from running, my palms sweaty from gripping that mysterious note. His hood shadowed most of his face, but his eyes were sharp, piercing, like they could see straight through me. "You still don't understand, do you?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. "How could I?" I snapped, my voice cracking from fear and confusion. I woke up, and my family was gone. My entire neighborhood was gone. And now you're telling me they are responsible? Who are they? What's happening? He leaned closer, lowering his voice until it was barely above a whisper. "Shh. You weren't supposed to wake up. None of us were." My blood ran cold. What do you mean?" He hesitated, scanning the dark corners of the shop, as if he expected something to emerge from the shadows. Only then did he continue. "This world you're in isn't the same one you went to sleep in. It looks like it, but it's different. It's a copy, a cage. The people you knew, your family, your friends, they're still alive, but they're trapped somewhere else. Somewhere we can't reach, unless we find the source. I shook my head, trying to process his words. A copy of the world? Doesn't make any sense. You're saying this is some kind of dream? His eyes hardened. No. Worse. A dream belongs to you. This place doesn't. It belongs to them. A chill crawled down my spine. The way he said them made the word feel poisonous, like it wasn't meant to be spoken out loud. Then why me? I asked, my voice trembling. Why am I here? Why did I wake up when no one else did? He stared at me for a long moment, as if weighing whether to tell me the truth. Finally, he said, because you weren't supposed to see it. You weren't supposed to notice the cracks. Cracks. He nodded. Sometimes their illusion isn't perfect. Sound that doesn't belong. A shadow moving the wrong way. A moment that feels off. Most people ignore it, brush it aside, convince themselves they imagined it. But you saw it. Once you see the cracks, the cage can't hold you anymore. That's when they mark you. I swallowed hard, remembering the strange silence, the missing toast, the icy doorknob. All the little things I had noticed but hadn't understood. My stomach sank. So, what happens now? I asked, almost too afraid to hear the answer. They'll come for you, he said simply. I stiffened. Come for me? Why? To erase you, he said, his tone flat. To take back control. The weight of his words pressed down on me. I realized with a sickening certainty that I had stumbled into something I was never meant to discover. Before I could respond, a sound shattered, the air metal scraping against metal, echoing through the empty streets outside. The man's head snapped toward the window, his eyes narrowing. They found us, he whispered. My pulse spiked. Who? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the back of the shop. Move, we rushed through the darkness, our footsteps crunching over broken glass and scattered debris. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear over it, but then I caught at the sound of something following us. It's not footsteps exactly, but a strange, distorted dragging, like claws scraping against the ground. What is that? I gasped. Not what, he hissed. Who? We burst out the back door into a narrow alley. The man shoved a rusted dumpster aside, revealing a small, hidden passage between two crumbling walls. In there, he ordered. I hesitated, peering into the darkness. The space was barely wide enough to squeeze through, and it smelled of damp rot and rust. But then I heard the scraping sound, closer now, echoing through the alley. My fear left me no choice. I squeezed inside, the hooded man close behind me. I crouched in the suffocating darkness, barely able to breathe. Held my breath as the sound grew louder, closer, until it stopped right outside the passage. For a moment there was silence. Then, a whisper. Low, distorted, inhuman. It spoke my name. My blood turned to ice. The hooded man pressed a hand over my mouth, his eyes burning into mine, warning me not to make a sound. I stayed frozen, every muscle trembling as the whisper echoed again, dragging my name through the air like it had always known me. After what felt like an eternity, the sound faded. The scraping moved away, leaving only silence. The man removed his hand and whispered, Now you understand. I know who you are. My heart pounded against my chest, each beat screaming that my life would never be the same again. And in that moment, I realized the horrifying truth. The secret I was supposed to know was just that the world was a cage, was that I had already been chosen. After that night in the alley, nothing felt the same. Even though the hooded man who finally told me his name was Aaliyah said we were safe for the moment. I knew safety was only an illusion. The whisper of my name, twisted and inhuman, replayed in my head like a broken record. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined the sound returning, louder, closer, until it was inside my head. Elias had given me an old flashlight, dim and flickering, but I kept it clutched in my hands all night, as if its weak glow could protect me. By morning, if it could even be called morning in this strange, frozen version of the world, Elias said we had to move again. They'll track us. They always do, he warned. I followed him through abandoned streets, each one more unsettling than the last. Cars sat parked with their doors open, groceries spilled across sidewalks, bikes toppled over as if the people riding them had vanished mid-motion. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Nothing except the shadows. At first I thought I was imagining it. A flicker at the corner of my vision, a ripple against the walls of empty houses, a blur that disappeared when I turned my head. But then it happened again and again. Elias, I whispered as we passed a row of dark storefronts. Something's following us. He didn't even look back. I know. That one sentence nearly broke me. The calmness in his voice meant he had expected this all along. What are they? I pressed, my voice shaking. Shadows, he said simply. Fragments of them. They can't take full form unless you let them. Don't look too long. Don't listen. But it was impossible not to notice. Every reflective surface betrayed them: store windows, puddles, shards of broken glass. The shapes weren't human, not exactly, but they weren't formless either. They shifted and writhed, stretching long limbs that bent in ways no body should. And always, their faceless heads tilted toward me. By the time we reached the outskirts of town, my nerves were shredded. The sun hung high in the sky, but somehow it offered no warmth. I prickled, every hair standing on end as the shadows crept closer. Why me? I whispered again, desperate for an answer. Why are they following me? Because you're awake, Elias said without hesitation, and they fear what the awake ones might uncover. His words gave me no comfort. We stopped at a collapsed overpass, using the concrete ruins for cover. Elias dug through his bag and pulled out a small, leather-bound journal, its pages worn and stained. He flipped it open, scanning the symbols and notes scrawled across it. This is how we fight them, he muttered. Knowledge. They keep the truth buried, but every scrap I find brings us closer to the source. I peered at the strange markings. Some looked like maps, others like codes. One page had a sketch of a tall, shadowy figure, its limbs stretching across the paper. My stomach turned at the familiarity. I asked, my voice barely audible. Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Then you won't be you anymore." Before I could ask what he meant, a chill swept over us. The air grew heavier, darker, though the sun still blazed above. I turned, and my heart nearly stopped. The shadows weren't hiding anymore. They gathered at the edge of the street, dozens of them, stretching across the walls, the ground, even climbing the sky like ink spilling upward. Their heads tilted in unison, faceless but somehow aware, focused entirely on me. "Run," Elias ordered. We sprinted across the ruins, my lungs burning, my legs weak. But the shadows slithered after us, faster than I thought possible. They didn't move like people. They flowed, gliding over surfaces, melting into cracks, and reappearing closer. Everywhere I looked, they multiplied. We darted into an old subway entrance, the stale air suffocating as we pounded down the stairs. The shadows followed, dripping across the walls like spilled oil. Tripped on a broken step, nearly falling, but Elias yanked me up, dragging me forward. The tunnel was pitch black except for my flickering flashlight. Every time the beam dimmed, I saw them, the shifting shapes creeping along the ceiling, crawling on all fours, stretching their arms toward me. "Keep going," Elias shouted. I stumbled into an abandoned train car, slamming the door shut behind us. Shadows pressed against the glass, their forms distorting, their whispers seeping through the cracks. My name again, over and over. The sound drilled into my skull, tugging at my thoughts, twisting them. My grip on the flashlight weakened. For one terrifying moment, I wanted to open the door to let them in. "Don't listen," Elias grabbed my shoulders, shaking me back. "That's how they break you. Stay with me." I squeezed my eyes shut, clamping my hands over my ears. But the whispers crawled inside anyway, cold and endless, filling me with dread I couldn't escape. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadows pulled back. The whispers faded, the pressure lifted. I opened my eyes, gasping, and saw nothing outside the train car but darkness. "They won't stop now," Elias said grimly. "Once they've marked you, the shadows will follow you everywhere." My chest heaved as I tried to steady my breathing. "So what do we do?" Elias met my eyes, his voice steady but grave. "We find the source before they find us." But deep inside, I already knew the truth. Shadows weren't just following me, they were waiting for me. By the time night fell, I was beyond exhausted. But sleep was the last thing I could manage. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, the shadows, pressing their faceless forms against the train's glass, whispering my name until it sank into my bones. Elias had set up a small camp in the corner of the abandoned subway station. A lantern flickered weakly between us, casting more shadows than it pushed back. I sat with my knees pulled tight to my chest, my hands shaking despite the heat of the lantern's flame. "You need to rest," Elias said, his voice calm but stern. "If you collapse, you won't make it through tomorrow." I shook my head violently. "I can't. Every time I try to sleep, I hear them, feel them." "They want you weak," he replied. "That's how they break people, but you have to fight it." I looked at him, searching for reassurance, but there was none in his eyes. He looked as tired as I felt, though he carried it better, like someone who had been living this nightmare far longer than me. Hours dragged on. The lantern hissed softly, its flame swaying with the faint underground breeze. The silence was oppressive, broken only by distant drips of water echoing through the tunnels. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could close my eyes for a moment, but then it started. At first it was faint, so faint I thought it was in my head. A whisper, low and distorted, curling through the darkness like smoke. My name, drawn out, warped. I snapped my eyes open, heart pounding. The tunnels beyond the lantern's glow were pitch black. Too black. "They're here," I whispered. Elias stood instantly, his hand on the knife strapped to his side. "Stay close to the light." The whisper grew louder. Not just one voice now, dozens. My name repeated again and again, overlapping, crawling into every corner of the station. My skin prickled as I looked toward the shadows. They writhed against the walls like living ink, stretching closer, recoiling, then advancing again. I pressed my back against the cold concrete, clutching the flickering lantern. The flame danced wildly, and for a horrifying second I thought it might go out. "Don't listen to them," Elias hissed. "Lies, lies. Or truths you're not ready for." As if on cue, one whisper broke through clearer than the rest. "We have your family." My breath caught. No, that's not real. They're lying. But then another voice, softer, familiar, filled the air. "Help us." It was my mother's voice. I froze, my throat closing. "Did you hear that?" I gasped. Elias grabbed my shoulder, shaking me. "It's not her. It's them. They take the voices of the people you love. Don't fall for it." But the whispers didn't stop. My mother's voice turned to my brothers, then my father's, then my best friends. One after another, they called out, begging, pleading. "Please don't leave us here. They're hurting us. It's your fault." The words stabbed into me, each one cutting deeper. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the voices were inside my head now, louder, heavier. The lantern sputtered, the flame shrinking. My pulse skyrocketed. Ilias the light. He dropped to his knees, shielding the flame with his hands, whispering something I didn't understand. Symbols scratched into his journal glowed faintly, as if his words were pulling power from them. The flame steadied. The whispers shrieked in unison, recoiling back into the tunnels, their voices twisting into something inhuman and furious. The walls trembled as if the station itself was rejecting them. In silence, the weight lifted. My chest loosened. The shadows were gone. I collapsed, trembling, tears streaking down my face. I heard them, Elias. I heard my family. What if it was them? What if they really are trapped? Elias sat back, his face grim. That's what they want you to believe. They use your grief, your guilt, your love, anything to pull you in. If you follow the voices, you'll never come back. His words didn't soothe me. They only made the ache in my chest worse. Because deep down, a part of me wanted to believe it was my family, that they were out there calling for me. I looked at Elias, my voice breaking. How do you know? How do you know it's not real? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw the truth. He didn't know. That night, I never closed my eyes. Sleep was impossible. The shadows had found a way inside me, planting seeds of doubt and fear that would never leave. And as I sat in the dim glow of the lantern, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't the shadows themselves that scared me the most. It was the thought that maybe, just maybe, the voices were real. And if they were, then my family was suffering because of me. By the time the whispers finally faded, I was left broken, shaking, hollow, and more confused than ever. Elias had saved me from collapsing into their voices, but he hadn't erased the doubt. I couldn't stop hearing them, the way they used my family's voices, the way they begged, the way they blamed me. We sat in silence for a long time, the lantern casting small circles of light across the subway car. Elias scribbled something in his journal while I hugged my knees, trying to steady my breathing. Finally, I spoke. "Elias, what if they weren't lying?" He froze mid-stroke, his pencil hovering over the page. Slowly, he looked up at me. "Don't start down that path." "But what if it was them?" I pressed. "You said this place is a copy, a cage. You said the real world is still out there, right? Then maybe those voices are trapped with my family. Maybe they're reaching out to me." Elias's eyes darkened. "That's exactly what they want you to think. The moment you start listening, they win." "But how do you know?" My voice cracked, my desperation spilling over. "You said yourself none of us were supposed to wake up. You don't know how all of this works, do you?" He slammed the journal shut, the sound echoing in the empty subway car. "I know enough." The sharpness in his tone silenced me, but it didn't calm the storm in my head. Enough wasn't the same as the truth. That night, as Elias drifted into a shallow sleep, I stayed awake, staring at the weak glow of the lantern. My mind was a battlefield. On one side, Elias's warning, "Don't listen. Don't follow." On the other side, my family's voices, soft and desperate, echoing in my memory. I couldn't decide which was worse, the fear that they were lying or the fear that they were telling the truth. Sometime in the middle of the night, I thought I heard it again. A whisper, faint but clear. "Please, help us." My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at Elias. He was still asleep, his chest rising and falling steadily. My shaking hand reached for the lantern, but I stopped. If I made a sound, if I woke him, he'd tell me it was another trick. He'd shut me down again. The voice grew stronger. It wasn't distorted this time. It was unmistakably my brother's. "We're so close. Don't give up on us." Tears burned my eyes. "Where are you?" I whispered back before I could stop myself. The answer came instantly. "Follow the cracks." Chill ripped through me. Cracks, the same word Elias had used. The same thing he said had woken me up. I looked around the subway car, but everything seemed solid. Normal, if anything about this world could be called normal. But then near the corner I noticed it. A faint line running along the wall. Not a crack in the concrete exactly, but something else. It shimmered faintly, like light leaking through a seam. My heart pounded. Could this be it? Could this be the way to my family? I stood, moving slowly toward it, my hand outstretched. The closer I got, the louder the voice became. "Yes, here. We're waiting." My fingers brushed the seam. It was cold, freezing, and it pulsed faintly beneath my touch, like something alive. Suddenly, Elias's hand clamped around my wrist, yanking me back. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, his eyes blazing with fury. I stumbled, nearly dropping the lantern. I heard them. My brother. He told me to follow the cracks. His grip tightened. "That wasn't your brother. That was them." Shook my head violently, fighting his hold. "You don't know that? What if it really was him? What if my family is right there, behind this wall or whatever it is? What if they need me?" Elias's face hardened, his jaw clenched. "And what if it's a trap? What if you open it, and instead of your family, you let them through?" The weight of his words crushed me. My chest heaved, my mind spinning. He could be right, or I could be right. I had no way of knowing which. Slowly, he let go of my wrist, but his voice was sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Listen to me. You're caught between two truths, the one you want to believe and the one that will keep you alive. If you choose wrong, there's no going back." I swallowed hard, my eyes drifting back to the faint crack glowing in the wall. The voices had gone silent now, as if waiting for me to decide. For the rest of the night, I sat there in torment, staring at that impossible seam, trapped between fear and truth. And I knew sooner or later, I'd have to choose which one to follow. I didn't sleep at all that night. My eyes stayed locked on the glowing seam in the wall, faint as a heartbeat, impossible to ignore. Every time I blinked, I half expected the crack to widen, for something to crawl through, for the voices to return. But it just pulsed softly, as if mocking me. Elias hadn't said another word after his warning. He'd gone back to writing furiously in his journal. Like recording every thought could protect him from the madness outside. I envied him for that certainty, even if it was an illusion. Me. I had nothing but questions. By dawn, if you could call the faint grayness of this place dawn, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. What happens if we open it? I asked suddenly, my voice trembling. Elias didn't look up. We don't. That's not an answer. He set his pencil down with a sigh, rubbing his temples. If we open it, one of two things will happen. Either it's a door and you'll step through, never coming back. Or it's a hole, and everything on the other side comes flooding in. He met my eyes then, and his expression chilled me. Either way, you're gone. Gone. The word echoed in my mind like a death sentence. But what if gone meant being with my family again? What if gone meant finally escaping this place? Later, when Elias wandered to the far end of the subway tunnel to scavenge supplies from abandoned lockers, I sat in front of the crack, alone, staring at it. That's when they came back. The voices, please, you're so close. This time it wasn't just my brother. I heard my mother's voice, my father's, even my grandmother's, soft and frail but unmistakable. We're waiting for you, just a little further. Just open it. Tears spilled down my face. How do I know it's really you? I whispered. Because who else would know? My mother's voice replied, warm and broken. Who else would call you by your childhood name? And then she did. She called me by that silly little nickname only she and my father had ever used, something I hadn't heard in years. Something I'd never told Elias. Something that shouldn't have been possible here. My breath caught in my throat. They knew. They remembered. It had to be them. My hand trembled as I reached out. My fingertips hovered just above the cold seam. It felt like the most important decision of my life, balanced on a knife's edge. That's when Elias's voice thundered behind me. Don't you dare. I jerked back, spinning around. He was running toward me, his journal tucked under one arm, his face twisted with rage and fear. You don't understand, I cried, scrambling to my feet. They knew my name, something I never told you. How could they know if it wasn't real? Elias grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. Because they get inside your head. They take your memories, your fears, your hopes. They twist them until you can't tell the difference. That's their trick. I shoved him back, anger boiling over. Or maybe you just don't want me to find out the truth. Maybe you're keeping me here for your own reasons. Maybe you're just as trapped as I am, and you don't want to admit it. His face hardened, but his eyes betrayed something like guilt. Maybe, he said softly, but at least I'm still alive. The words stung, sharp as glass. My heart hammered in my chest as I turned back toward the crack. The faint glow seemed brighter now, beckoning, promising. My family's voices whispered again, soft and urgent. Don't let him stop you. We're right here. I was shaking so badly I could barely breathe. Elias stood behind me, silent, waiting. I could feel the weight of his stare. And in that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. If I followed Elias, I'd keep living in fear, never knowing the truth, always wondering if my family had been reaching out to me for real. If I followed the voices, I might save them, or I might damn myself forever. The choice was mine. I pressed my palm flat against the seam. It burnt like ice, spreading up my arms, stealing the air from my lungs. The voices rose into a chorus, shouting now, screaming, begging me to open the way. Behind me, Elias shouted my name. Oh, and then I pushed. The wall cracked. Light burst through like a blade cutting open the dark. The ground shook. The voices screamed in triumph. Elias roared in anger. I realized too late that there was no turning back. I had made my choice. The choice that could save or destroy me. The light swallowed me whole. For a moment, I thought I was falling, being pulled through a tunnel of white so blinding that my eyes watered. My body felt weightless, as if every bone had dissolved, leaving only thought and memory behind. The voices grew deafening. My mother, my father, my brother, my grandmother, all calling my name, overlapping, desperate. I reached out, convinced I was finally going home, finally free. Then the light shattered. I hit the ground hard, gasping. The air smelled damp, metallic, wrong. My vision cleared, and I realized I wasn't home. Not even close. I was in another tunnel. But this one was different. The walls weren't stone or concrete. They pulsed, like the inside of a living thing. Veins of light ran through them, throbbing in rhythm with a heartbeat I couldn't hear but could feel in my chest. My stomach twisted with dread, and then I saw them. Shapes moving in the glow. At first, I thought they were people's silhouettes of men, women, children, drifting toward me. My breath caught. Mom, Dad. They stepped closer, and my blood ran cold. They weren't my family. It's not anymore. Their faces were pale imitations, stretched and wrong, like masks molded from half-forgotten dreams. Their mouths moved, but the words weren't theirs. They were echoes stolen from my memories. Come home, stay with us. Forever. I stumbled back, heart pounding, bile rising in my throat. No, this isn't real. The figures lurched forward, too smooth, too fast, their limbs bending unnaturally. The more I looked, the less human they became. Their eyes were pits of white fire, their voices breaking apart into 1,000 whispers, each one cutting into my skull. I spun around, desperate for an escape, but the crack was gone. The wall behind me was sealed shut, smooth and pulsing like flesh. Trapped. My screams echoed uselessly. That's when Elias appeared. I don't know how he got there, but suddenly he was beside me, pulling me up, his face grim. His journal still clutched in his hand. I told you, he hissed, his eyes wild. They're not your family. They never were. This place feeds on you. It takes what you love most and wears it like skin. The creatures closed in, their bodies twisting into sharper shapes, claws forming where fingers should have been. The air itself grew heavy, choking me. What do we do? Coked out, clutching Elias's arm. He shoved the journal into my hands. End it. I stared at him, confused. What, how? His voice shook. Everything I've written. Every word, every memory, every rule I've learned. It's all in there. Burn it, and maybe, just maybe, this world collapses. The creatures shrieked, as if hearing his plan. They surged forward, their voices splitting into a storm of noise. My head felt like it would split apart. I fumbled with the journal, my hands slick with sweat. My family's voices cried out louder now, pleading. Don't listen to him. Don't leave us. You're so close. Tears blurred my vision. My mother's voice broke me. If you love us, stay. I froze. This was the moment. The real choice. Save myself or stay trapped forever chasing the ghosts of the people I loved. Elias grabbed my wrist, his voice fierce. Don't you see? They'll never stop. They'll never let you go. Burn it. Chest felt like it would cave in. My hand shook violently as I pulled a lighter from Elias's coat pocket. He must have planted it there on purpose. The moment the flame touched the pages, the tunnel screamed. The walls convulsed, the light veins rupturing. The creatures shrieked in agony, their stolen voices unraveling into static. My family collapsed into ash, dissolving into the pulsing floor. The ground cracked open. A violent wind sucked everything inward, the walls tearing apart like paper. Elias shouted something, but I couldn't hear him over the roar. The journal burned in my hands, disintegrating into sparks that were swallowed by the collapsing world. Then darkness, silence. I opened my eyes. I was lying on cracked pavement, under a pale morning sky. The subway entrance loomed behind me, crumbling and silent. No trace of the pulsing wall or the creatures, just a ruin. Cars passed by in the distance. Birds chirped. The world was normal. I sat up slowly, trembling, my body sore but alive. My hands were empty. The journal was gone. So was Elias. For a long time, I just sat there, breathing in the air of a world I thought I'd never see again. But a thought gnawed at me. Did I escape? Or did the world I burned just reshape itself into something that felt familiar? I may never know. But every night when I close my eyes, I still hear them, those voices, faint, calling my name. And sometimes, when the walls of my room are very quiet, I swear I see a faint seam of light, waiting,